The Titanic, one of the most famous passenger ships in history, was built as a luxurious transatlantic liner, but its fate turned tragic when it sank on its maiden voyage in 1912. In the following, we will explore various aspects of this monumental ship, including its conception, construction, dimensions, design, passengers, crew, and the fateful moment of its sinking. The idea for the Titanic originated from the White Star Line Company, which aimed to build a series of large and luxurious ships to capture the transatlantic travel market. The founder of the White Star Line, Thomas Henry Ismay, was an entrepreneur born in 1837 in England. He became a key player in transatlantic shipping. His son, Joseph Bruce Ismay, born in 1862, served as the director of the White Star Line and played a crucial role in the decisions regarding the design and construction of the Titanic. The estimated cost of building the Titanic was around $7.5 million, which would be equivalent to several $100 million in today's currency. The Titanic was constructed at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Construction began in 1909, and the ship was completed in 1912. Approximately 15,000 workers were involved in the construction of the Titanic and its sister ship, Olympic, at the Harland and Wolff shipyard. Construction of the Titanic began on March 31, 1909, with the laying of the keel, the foundational part of the ship's hull. The size of the ship was impressive for its time, with a length of 269 meters, a width of 28 meters, and a height of 53 meters. The Titanic was powered by 4 steam turbines driving 3 propellers. Its maximum speed was around 24 knots. Constructed from high-quality steel, the Titanic boasted greater strength and impact resistance compared to traditional materials like iron. The construction involved the riveting technique, where metal rivets were heated to red hot and inserted through holes to create strong joints. The Titanic featured 3 large propellers, known as triple screws. Each propeller was powered by a separate set of steam turbines, providing greater stability and speed. The Titanic had a double hull, with an outer and inner hull, intended to provide additional safety in case of collision. Although it appeared to have 4 funnels, only the first 3 were functional. The 4th funnel served mainly decorative and ventilation purposes. The funnel stood approximately 24 meters tall and had a distinctive red and white color scheme. The Titanic burned around 600 tons of coal every day to remain operational. The Titanic was designed as a luxurious ship with numerous amenities, including restaurants, gyms, a cigar smoking lounge, and spacious cabins. Of course, the entire ship was electrified, had central heating, and featured television rooms. It had 4 main decks: the boat deck, promenade deck, bridge deck, and saloon deck. The boat deck housed lifeboats, the main passenger deck, and the main navigation area. The promenade deck was where passengers could enjoy walks by the sea, visit restaurants, and other public spaces. The bridge deck contained the bridge, where the ship was navigated, and various passenger cabins. The saloon deck was located lower on the ship and contained various cabins, restaurants, and other facilities. The Titanic was adorned with a large number of artworks, including tapestries, sculptures, and frescoes. Some of these artworks have been found during the exploration of the wreck. The Titanic had a capacity for 3,547 passengers and crew members, but due to underfilled cabins, there were approximately 2,224 people on board during its maiden voyage. Despite the ship's size, the Titanic had only 20 lifeboats, which were sufficient for only about half of the passengers. This lack seriously affected the rescue efforts during the sinking. Interestingly, the Titanic was designed to carry up to 64 lifeboats, which could accommodate around 4,000 people, but for practicality and increased luxury, a smaller number of lifeboats was opted for. Music was often played on board, and among the crew was an orchestra led by a man named Wallace Hartley. After the Titanic struck the iceberg and began to sink, the orchestra continued to play in an effort to calm the passengers and maintain order. Legend has it that they played until the very end, with their final song being "Nearer, My God, to Thee," before perishing in the disaster. These individuals have remained etched in memory as something special in the tragedy that occurred. Among the passengers were wealthy industrialists, artists, politicians, and ordinary people seeking a better life in America. Notable passengers included Isidore Straus, co-owner of the department store Macy's and a prominent banker. He perished along with his wife Ida Straus when both refused to board lifeboats in order to stay together in their final moments. Their story became a symbol of love and loyalty. Benjamin Guggenheim, a member of the wealthy Guggenheim family, known for their mining and metallurgical businesses. Guggenheim traveled on the Titanic with his mistress and maid. He perished in the disaster, while his mistress survived in one of the lifeboats. John Jacob Astor, known for various business activities including real estate, shipbuilding, telecommunications, and investments. He was one of the wealthiest individuals in the United States at the time. Margaret Brown, an American socialite and philanthropist, best known for her bravery and humanitarian work during the Titanic disaster. Thomas Andrews, the chief designer of the Titanic, among many others. The captain of the Titanic was Edward Smith, an experienced maritime captain. Captain Smith was at the helm of the Titanic during its maiden voyage. His final orders included a series of instructions regarding navigation in icy waters. The crew consisted of around 900 members, including officers, sailors, stewards, cooks, and engineers. The crew came from various parts of the world, including Great Britain, the United States, Ireland, Sweden, and Norway. The Titanic was equipped with diverse spaces reflecting social differences among passengers of different classes. Passengers in first class had personal staff providing high-quality service, including waiters and stewardesses. Large cabins. First-class passengers enjoyed spacious cabins with private bathrooms, separate sleeping and living areas, and some had private balconies. Piano bar. They had access to an exclusive piano bar where they could enjoy music and drinks. À la carte restaurant. First-class passengers dined in a luxurious à la carte restaurant where gourmet delicacies were served. Here, passengers could order food according to their preferences. Second class offered family cabins that were smaller than those in first class but still quite comfortable. Common restaurant. Second-class passengers dined in a common restaurant where fairly tasty meals were served. Third-class passengers often shared communal cabins with several people, some slept in bunk beds. Third-class passengers dined in a large dining hall where meals were simpler but nutritionally sound. Here, third-class passengers could smoke cigars and socialize. Third-class passengers had limited access to outdoor spaces compared to those in higher classes. There were only 2 bathrooms for more than 700 third-class passengers. On the evening of April 14, 1912, the atmosphere on board was calm, and most passengers and crew were unaware of the danger ahead. The sea was exceptionally calm, making it difficult to spot icebergs. Reports of ice fields in the area existed, but crews like that of the Titanic believed these icebergs to be less hazardous than they actually were. Visual surveillance and scouting were often used to detect potential icebergs, but this practice was not entirely reliable. At 11:40 p.m., an iceberg was sighted ahead of the ship. Captain Edward Smith ordered the ship to turn, but it was too late to avoid the collision. The Titanic struck the iceberg, causing a massive gash along its side, allowing water to flood the compartments meant to prevent sinking. After the collision, the crew desperately sent distress calls via wireless telegraph. The first of these calls managed to reach other ships, including the RMS Carpathia, which arrived at the scene but too late to save most of the passengers. The ship sank around 2 hours and 40 minutes after the collision. As if the situation wasn't dire enough, towards the end of the sinking, the unthinkable occurred. When structural cracks became unbearable due to water pressure and load, the Titanic began to break apart. The breaking of the ship occurred around 2:18 a.m., starting between the third and fourth funnels. The ship sank into the ocean around 2:20 a.m. Most people who attempted to swim in the cold water were exposed to the danger of hypothermia and perished in the following hours. Only a few lifeboats returned to rescue survivors who were swimming in the cold water. The Titanic tragedy, which occurred 600 kilometers southwest of Newfoundland, had a profound and lasting impact on global maritime safety and became one of the most famous stories of maritime disasters in history. There are numerous memorials dedicated to the victims of the Titanic worldwide, including one in Belfast, where the ship was built. There are numerous mysteries and theories surrounding the Titanic itself, its passengers, and its sinking. Here are some of them. There is a controversial theory known as the switch theory, which claims that the Titanic was actually switched with another ship, the RMS Olympic. These theories suggest that the shipowners, including the White Star Line and Maritime Insurance, intentionally swapped the ships to defraud insurance and profit from the alleged accident. The Olympic, the older sister ship of the Titanic, had experienced a series of accidents and collisions before the Titanic's launch. According to the theory, the damages to the Olympic were so severe that it was deemed uneconomical to repair, so it was replaced with the Titanic. The Titanic and Olympic were nearly identical in design, and according to the theory, this would have facilitated the switch. There are controversies surrounding the presence of a baby on the Titanic, which, according to some claims, was born and survived the sinking. However, this story is shrouded in mystery and unverified information. Some believe in the curse of the Titanic, claiming that the ship was cursed from the beginning and that many of the workers who built it suddenly died during construction. There are theories suggesting that the Titanic, instead of an accident, was actually sunk to spur the enactment of new safety regulations and improvements in the maritime industry. There are claims that some ships deliberately ignored or did not react quickly enough to the Titanic's distress calls, which might have reduced the number of casualties. An unusual story comes from passenger Dorothy Gibson, who took a stone from the wreckage of the Titanic as a souvenir but later claimed that the stone was cursed and contributed to a series of misfortunes in her life. On the day the Titanic struck the iceberg, a lifeboat drill was scheduled but was cancelled for unknown reasons. Many believe that more lives could have been saved if the drill had been conducted. The Federal Reserve conspiracy theory alleges that powerful bankers, such as the Rothschilds, J.P. Morgan, and others associated with the Federal Reserve or other financial interests, intentionally sank the Titanic. It is claimed that these bankers benefited from the sinking of the Titanic because among the passengers were opponents of the creation of the Federal Reserve, and sinking the ship was an attempt to eliminate opponents of that financial plan. After the sinking, the White Star Line faced numerous lawsuits and compensation claims from the families of the victims. Legal proceedings typically took place in the United States and the United Kingdom, and some stretched on for years. The company had to pay high compensation costs, lost the trust of passengers, and developed a negative public image. Despite the tragic outcome, the company continued its operations, but its reputation was permanently tarnished. Despite the tragedy, the White Star Line remained in business until the 1930s when it became part of the Cunard White Star Line. Its fleet continued to sail, and the company participated in further developments in maritime transportation. The sinking of the Titanic had long-term consequences for the White Star Line and the entire maritime industry, and the company had to adapt to changes in regulations, safety standards, and public opinion to survive and continue its operations. The Titanic was discovered in 1985 by Robert Ballard, an American oceanographer. The wreckage is located at a depth of about 3,800 meters at the bottom of the North Atlantic. Over the years, various expeditions have unveiled many artifacts from the wreckage, including porcelain, tableware, clothing, as well as parts of the ship such as doors and ladders. Due to the wreckage being at great depth and over 100 years since the disaster, it is in poor condition. It is partially submerged in mud and covered with sediments, and the ship is deteriorating over time. The legacy of the Titanic far surpasses its historical significance. It has permeated popular culture through literature, film, music, and art, inspiring countless works that explore themes of tragedy, heroism, and human resilience. The Titanic disaster continues to offer valuable lessons for contemporary society. It underscores the need for robust safety protocols, effective risk management, and thorough disaster preparedness measures in all aspects of life. As we remember the Titanic, we must also grapple with the ethical considerations surrounding its commemoration. Sensationalism, exploitation, and commercialization of the tragedy are issues that require careful thought and discussion. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I kindly ask you to press the subscribe button and like it to receive notifications about new topics and help in the realization of new ones, and to continue our journey together. In the next topic, we will try to keep you interested to stay with us and to enjoy a diverse and interesting content. Warm regards until the next video.